we did that survey. We asked about 40 content areas. Which of these would be beneficial to you or others, for things that you didn't get to become a behavior analyst? 39 of the 40 had really high scores that people had said, we know we really need this. So there's at least 39 content areas. There's probably actually more than that that I didn't ask about. Yet, when you look at our conference agendas, we're all pulling the same speakers in, talking on the same topic, instead of saying, how do we segment this and bring as much content with the least amount of replication possible? And we're totally missing the mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there are a couple of things. There's probably an availability heuristic going on there, where everybody hears the same names and sees the same topics and gets excited about that and wants to bring that back to their conference. And the other element is an organization. The big names will distribute. If you get Aubrey Landers at their conference, you're going to get more people. We have people complaining every year at something which is a great problem to have, that everyone wants to see. But how do you then pivot to pulling in people whose names are out of well-known, but still might be brilliant at existing?
But you know my thoughts about this. The way that you do that, I think, is through panels where you have a really nice mix of senior voices with younger voices. You pair them together, and you build up that audience for those other voices, and then you help them kind of elevate to the next phase. Because part of what our responsibility is as behavior analysts is we need to have a much deeper bench. We need to really expand the things that we're talking about. And if we know that people are going to naturally kind of distribute to the 20 or 30 people that everyone really likes, then you pair with those people. And I would venture to guess that a lot of those people, most of whom I know at this point, also are deeply invested in not traveling as much because they're tired. I mean, there's only so much you're gonna get with your medallion status on Delta. At some point you're gonna be like, this shit sucks. I want to go home and be with my family and have a beer on my porch, for God's sake.
That's how you really feel right now.
Yeah, don't sugarcoat it, Sarah. Just spit it out.
I like to keep it raw. No, but I mean, honestly, these poor people, I was talking to Matt Broadhead, he's like, I'm just really tired. And I was like, I know, Matt, stop writing such great shit, and we'll stop asking you to come places. But again, it's our responsibility to then, we have to be sourcing these voices, we have to be reinforcing these voices, again, we have to be pairing these voices with other speakers, and that is, to me, the mechanism by which we create the expansion in both the people and the topic that we're
I think really looking at the topic expansion too, because what you were saying earlier at the workshop is those soft skills are not being taught anywhere.
No.
And that's where we're failing time and time again.
Yes.
And if you
because a great clinician doesn't mean they're a great supervisor.
No.
Does not mean that.
And there's a difference between being a manager and a leader as well. And those are different skill sets. And being able to hone those in our young professionals, I think, is only going to benefit us as a...
But even you take that and you take it one step further. If you think about it, and I haven't looked in the research in a long time, but back when I was doing my master's in leadership, I looked at a bunch of research on how much people retain when they get didactic instruction.
15% or something.
It's 15% after a month, and it drops like a rock after that. Yet our focus is always on that element of content that nobody's going to be remembering. So what we used to ask our speakers to do was, yes, deliver your content, make it CE worthy. But what I want you to do is I want you to tell it from the heart. I want you to tell people, make them motivated, make them be really excited to not only go back to work and do it more and do it better tomorrow, but rather than take what you're talking about here and being like, I just learned this. Give them just enough information that they can go back and look at it themselves in their own time as it's applicable to their life and their practice. And they'll get way more out of that than what we told them.
Then the 50 minutes.
50 minutes of CE-worthy content.
I go to a lot of conferences, and I feel like, I think it was awesome that when you guys started the talk, you were like, oh, it's going to be on Dropbox, and you saw all of the audience's pens go down, and they're like, oh. And they were so excited about it. But you go to the conferences, and I've seen this same talk over and over again, and they don't share it because they're kind of scrolling away their presentation. And how do we get those gems out of those presentations when it's the same presentation given 5 different times in the same year, and we're all attending the same talks?
But I think we do that by getting Ryan's point out there that if you get stuff out in social media, you can get some of your core points out there at the very least, and then you can make your content original and personal when you do those talks that sort of accentuates the point.
But also
or
keeps it
brings
fresh.
the next
Yeah.
step.
Yeah, it keeps it fresh.
It keeps the conversation on the topic.
Yeah,
going.
but I mean, but it's
But
to me,
that's more effortful and like our.
it is. And again, we're looking at a taxed bench that are doing a lot of things in the midst of either being an academic, researching, running a practice, or all of those things, which many people do. But I think it's really important for us to really kind of break down those barriers. If you're coming to pay for something to obtain knowledge, then I want to make sure that you are walking away with everything that we've talked about, and that there's nothing that it's full transparency. Because that's, from my perspective, it's the only way to go.
Yeah.
If we really want people to come away with things, for them to be able to sit with it later, to come back to things. Even Ryan and I were talking today about, okay, do we start making some of these talks just into a podcast? Then we can just throw up the audio so people can listen to it, even if they were already there, just because you're never going to walk away with everything on the first pass. Maybe you want to listen, have a second round, and it all comes down to, it's like disseminate. And if we're creating barriers and limitations, then we're not doing that.
Doing the thing where you share all of the data in the presentation is also lowering the effort for all of these people that are running a business and changing
And if we
hundreds
want
of
them
little
to engage-
lives.
Exactly. And we know that our data says, hey, if we're looking at, we really want people to do things, we need to look at interventions that require less response effort. So let's just put that out there already.
I also want to circle back to what you were saying with community, right? I think we all can agree, at least, those in this group, that coming to a live event like this is always better because you get that networking, you get that personal touch. But I think something that I really heard in today's workshop from Ryan and you all is that ability to tap into social media and recreate it. Your free webinar that you're doing, like I'm already like, okay, RBT is going to go home and make sure that they see that and that we're doing that. But there's so many other platforms out there that are on social media, and they're creating communities. I mean, real communities that these people have never met each other, and they feel tight. They feel like
connected.
friends. They feel very connected. So I think we just need to tap into replicating what we feel here in person, and that networking and that support as we move into social media, as we move into these webinars that you guys are doing and podcasts and all that, and making sure around those we're building that community so people who can't access this either through fiscal means is a barrier, or travel, or whatever time constraints, or they're a new mom and they're at home, like the person who was going to present today, right?
Yeah.
So they can still access this content and feel like they're part of a community.